Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of Crafting with Class. Today I'm bringing you part 2 of the Diamond Press grip mats. The previous video was part 1 where I discussed basic information and compared these grip mats to those of Waffle Flower to see what their basic similarities and differences were. So if you missed that video, I will link it at the end of the video as well as in the description box below. For today, I'm going to be taking a deep dive and using the Diamond Press mats the same way I would use the Waffle Flower ones to see if these are comparable to those and if there is value in them as well. So I hope you enjoy the process, and if you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments. Alright, so I just want to remind you that I did not receive these. I purchased this so that I can test them out and give you an honest opinion. I'm going to do all of the techniques that they show here in the Diamond Press instruction sheet, as well as giving you some more that are not on the sheet, as well as some tips and tricks along the way. I hope, as always, that you find these helpful. Now, I'm not going to be going in any particular order according to this, just kind of what made sense to me in the process of creating. Now, just a reminder, you can use your grip mats on a cutting surface like this. This is a self-healing mat that I use, so you can use it on that. You can also use it if your surface is like a glass mat surface, then you can use it on that. And then you can also use it on a silicone mat surface like this one. Both of your grip mats will come with 2 acetate grid sheets, and they are different slightly. So as you can see, one is just a gridded sheet, and then it has that center point right there identified for you, and the other one has the markings for an A2 card, so horizontal and vertical, which is really nice. Whichever one you use is up to you. The larger mat has the same acetate sheets, but I'm not going to be using the large mat or these sheets in this particular video, but they would work the same exact way as the smaller one. You just have a larger surface to work with, which is wonderful. So when would you use these acetate sheets? So you would use it when you have a surface that is not gridded. So therefore, it would help you to use one of these underneath your grip mat so that you're able to see where you can line up either your images or your cardstock, whatever the case may be. Now, I'm going to be working on this little pad, and I'm not going to be using the grid guide sheets because this is a gridded little mat. Now, the grip mats come with a carrier sheet on the front and then one on the back of the grip mats to protect them against any little fuzzies or doggy hair, and keep it working for you. It works just as your regular photopolymer stamps, right, that have the backing and then the front part that has the images and all that on there. So imagine that your grip mat is like one big stamp without any images on it. And so if you treat it that way, then you're going to have it for a long, long time. And I'm sorry for my voice. I am still trying to get over this COVID cough. Now, here is a tip I have for you. I take a Sharpie marker, and on the acetate, the carrier sheet, I write down the product. Like in this case, it's the Diamond Press grip mat. This is the cover, and I may write the size, right? The 6.5 by 8.5. Okay, and the reason I do this is so that I don't accidentally throw it away, thinking it's just like wrapper or something. So I do that to both sides. Now, if you decide that, oh, I misspelled something or I want to change it to something else, here is another tip. And this is a teacher tip. I'm just showing you, you want to do that to the back one as well. So here's what you can do if you messed up, but it's permanent ink. Take an Expo marker, so just a dry erase marker, it doesn't matter what color, and just scribble over the part that you want to get rid of. So just scribble it over that, and then take a cloth and just wipe it across. So it will remove that permanent marker, but see, it won't remove that that didn't have the dry erase on top. So that is a little teacher tip from me to you. And you can use that on different things, and I do that in my craft room as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with the first test. So I'm going to go ahead and remove both of the acetate covers, and I'm going to set them aside. Remember, you don't want to throw them out because you want to go ahead and put this right back on when you are not using your grip mat. Okay, so remember that I said you want to treat your grip mat just like you would your regular photopolymer stamps. So you can use any inks that you would use on your photopolymer stamps. So dye inks, pigment inks, hybrid inks like the stress oxide, they will all work with your grip mat. So now, a good rule of thumb is to remember what you do to your photopolymer stamps, you do to your grip mat, and the other way around too. So don't do anything you wouldn't do to your photopolymer stamps. You want to clean them with cleaners that are meant for clear stamps. You can use a chamois, or my favorite, which is the Gina K Tidy Towel, or you can use a lint-free cloth, just anything. It doesn't have to be anything special. You can use even baby wipes. Are we ready to start the first test? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and peel off the liners. So remember, we're not throwing them out. So I will put them to the side, and then I will attach the grip mat to this little mat. And this is actually the insert, the mouse pad from the Misty. But since it's the exact same size, I will use it for this inking with stencil, our first technique. So I grabbed this stencil because look at how super delicate it is. So very fine lines. So you're going to attach the paper onto your grip mat, and then you're going to go ahead and put the stencil on top, and then you want to run your fingers along the four sides. This is what's going to hold your paper onto the mat without needing tape, without needing magnets, without any of that. It's awesome. That's what I really, really love about this. Now, I'm going to be using this red ink, and I know some of you already are like, no, but I'm doing this for a reason. So you can use anything, again, that you want to use to ink blend that you're comfortable with and you like to do. So I'm going to take this red ink. I'm going to tap off on the side on my grip mat just to remove any of the excess ink. And then I'm going to go ahead and just run this little brush across the top. And look, Ma, no hands. It is holding it down completely for me. Nothing is shifting. It looks great and it feels really good as well. So I'm going back in, getting some more. And then I'm going to fill in all of the page with this red ink. Now I'm going to speed it up because I'm just going in inking the cardstock. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take that Delicata pigment ink in gold, and I'm just going to tap in those centers of the poinsettia. I wish I would have remembered that's what I was going to do, and I would have left those a little bit, uninked in red. But I'm just going to go ahead and press that color in, and since it is pigment ink, then I can go ahead and use gold embossing powder and make that shiny and sparkly. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the stencil off the mat. So very carefully, I'm going to start on one end and pull it off. It's the cardstock is still sticking onto the mat, which is great. When you're going to pull the paper off, you want to pull the mat away from the paper like this, so that your paper comes off more cleanly and it doesn't get all folded. Because if you pull it off like the paper away from the mat, then it's going to buckle like this. So you want to keep your paper nice and straight, and you do that by pulling the mat away from the paper. Now I'm going to take my stamp cleaner and clean off that ink. So I'm using the Diamond Press one just because I have it here. I sprayed some onto my grip mat, and then I'm using my tidy towel to clean it off. But look, it's not coming off. And yeah, and it's stuck on there. It stained the mat. Now, did I know this was going to happen? Oh yes. Oh yes. Ask me how I know. But red ink is notorious for staining your photopolymer stamps, all of that. And it's not even like, oh, it's because it's Gina K. Not at all. I mean, I have yet to meet a red ink that does not stain like this. But I'm okay with it because that was the whole point. I wanted to show you that there are inks that are going to stain and there's nothing you can do to remove it. But it does not affect the way that this will work. It'll just be stained, but it will work perfectly. Now, a quick way to clean your stencils is by using an alcohol pad all over it. It dries really quick, and that's what I like to do. But if it's like red, then it's going to take a little more elbow grease. And so I'll just take some hand sanitizer and I will rub it with a baby wipe to really get that red off, and it will come off eventually. But remember, do not use alcohol directly onto your grip mat because it will break down the photopolymer in your grip mat, so you don't want to damage it. Okay, so here is my stencil all cleaned, and as you can see, got pretty much most of that red off. Now here's the panel. I did add some gold embossing powder to the centers, so now let's go ahead and step it up. I'm going to show you how to emboss that stencil, which is dry embossing, to add that beautiful 3D detail. So you're going to align your stencil back onto your paper. And then I'm using my Empress, so I'm using the magnetic mat and the stencil mat as well. So I have my paper, my stencil, and then my A plate. I'm going to run that through my Empress, and this is what it looks like. I hope you can tell that now, instead of it being flat, it is like 3D. It looks so neat. It's such an easy thing to do. All right, let's look at how we would ink die cut. So I have die cut some of these florals. These are from Spellbinders. So I'm just kind of putting them on the mat according to like color. So all the ones that I'm going to color pink are going to be on the side, and then all the ones that I'm going to color yellow, and so on. So I'm kind of making it easy for myself, and I'm pressing those down onto my grip mat. Now, I'm using oxide inks for this one, and I'm using my blending brushes. I'm going to go ahead and get some ink, and then I will tap it off, and then I will start inking. So what I noticed while I was doing this is that I had to hold down this flower die cut. It wasn't gripping, and I wasn't sure if that's like normal. I couldn't even remember. I think like COVID brain is like a real thing. So anyway, I went ahead and did the big flower. I pressed the little flower in a bit with my fingers. I ended up just kind of holding it with my finger and then inking it up. Now I'm not doing anything like crazy, just throwing some ink on and seeing if the grip mat is going to hold it. Now I'm going to use the Distress Oxide in Wild Honey for the little flowers. These held on much better for whatever reason. So I just went ahead and did those. And then to finish off the leaves, I used Twisted Citron, I believe. Yes, and so I'm going to go ahead and ink that up. Now again, these have little itty bitty delicate little stems, so I did end up holding those because I didn't want my die cut to rip while I was adding that ink. So I was curious because I'm like, I don't remember. Oh, I used the little acetate sheet to like press them in to see if they need to like stick on a little bit harder, and it didn't really help. So I just still ended up having to like hold it with my finger. And so I decided that I needed to check with the waffle flower mat to see if not holding on to the mat was like an issue with this diamond press one or what. So I will show you. Okay, so here is the waffle flower mat, and those are the die cuts that I did. So I did the same ones, and I'm just going to be testing this one out because this is the one that I felt a little bit more trouble hanging onto the mat. So I am pushing this in pretty well. I'm using, again, the same color, and then I'm just going to go ahead and start inking. And it behaved pretty much the same way as the diamond press. As you can see, I mean, it kind of holds, but it's better if you use your finger just to hold it in place. So I would say definitely it behaved very similarly to the diamond press. So there wasn't really any difference between the two mats. Okay, our next topic is basic stamping. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the diamond press one into my MISTI, and as you can see, it pops right in. And so now I'm going to go ahead and turn it because I like to have the hinge, or that part, the stamping part, on my right hand side. All right, so now here is my grip mat, and I'm going to stick my paper in the middle, and we're just doing basic stamping. So put my paper on. I'm going to be using this cute little chameleon from Fawn. So I'm going to go ahead, remove him from the backer sheet, and then just place him where I want to put him on my paper. So I'm just going to put him there, and then I am going to pick it up with the lid and then grabbing my ink. The paper is staying on there. It is not moving. You don't need to tape it down. You do not need to put magnets or any of that, which is fantastic. Something I just love about grip mats. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and ink up my little stamp, and I'm just using this Hero Arts Intensified Black ink, and I'm going to stamp him with that. Now I'm going to need to stamp him twice simply because I believe this is a stamp I haven't used before. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it another inking. And there you can see, there's our little guy. So cute. But I think our little guy needs a friend. So how do we get him a friend that's looking toward him? By a bonus tip, creating mirror images. So here is my little chameleon guy in the same place. I haven't moved him, but now I'm stamping him directly onto the grip mat. Now, you do need to work fast. So I'm going to take my paper, I'm going to lift the lid and quickly press my paper onto my grip mat. And I really want to make sure that I'm pressing down with my fingers to make sure the ink transfers. And when I lift up my page, boom, there he is. So now I have an mirror image. I don't need two different stamps. I can achieve those mirror images by using the grip mat. Now it is a little lighter, but you can easily fix that by just going over it with a pen. And you can even die cut this little guy by using the coordinating die, but cutting from the back instead of the front. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and clean it off the mat. And you can still see just a tiny bit of it, but it will come off once I use the Hero Arts, which is my favorite, the Ultra Clean. And so with a little bit of the Ultra Clean, it took off pretty much the rest of it, as you can see there. Okay, so don't forget to also clean your stamp. When I do mirror stamping, I usually use VersaFine because I feel like I get darker, crisper images. So I went ahead and took it out just to see if that still holds true with this mat. So I did the same steps. I inked up my little image. I'm going to stamp it directly onto the grip mat. And I haven't moved him from his place. Quickly pick up the paper, flip it over, and then press it really well to transfer that ink. And there he is. And you can see that, oh yeah, he is a little bit darker and a little bit crisper than the Hero Arts Intensified Black, right? You can see that. So yeah, definitely I would say the VersaFine is the better way if you're going to use the mirror stamping. So go ahead and let me clean him off. and we are ready to go on to the next thing. So I'm going to go ahead and take my fine liner pen, and then I'm just tracing over the stamped image just to make him darker. Now, if I would have been, actually taking my time, then I would not have gone way out of the lines like I did. Look at that poor eye. But you get the idea. And our little chameleon has a friend. Next, let's talk about off the edge stamping. So again, I'm going to go ahead and put my paper onto the grip mat. I'm using this old stamp set from Papertrey ink. Now, off the edge stamping is actually something that I love to do on the inside of my cards. And so what you're doing is exactly that. You are stamping on the paper and also off the paper at the same time. So you can do that along the edges, the corners of your paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick up my stamps with the lid of the Misty, and then I'm going to ink them up. And I'm going to use my VersaFine just because I have it here. And this pad is so old, you guys. Oh my gosh. It's like at least 12 years, honestly. And it's still super juicy. Like these things like last forever. Anyway, so I'm going to head and ink it up, and then I'm going to press down. I'm using the little diamond press tool, which I really like. Now, when you're using the grip mat, you don't need to put a lot of pressure. And so there it is. So you can see that the stamp is on the paper, but also off the paper. So remember to pull the mat away from your paper. And there it is. And it's such a nice little touch, I think. So that's it, off the paper. Okay, so now, of course, next step, let's clean it up. So I'm going to spray some Ultra Clean with my tiny towel and go ahead and clean off the surface. I am somebody who likes clean tools. Like if it's like dirty, I just, no, I'm too type A. I'm not like a clean freak, but I do like my tools to, not be all raggedy. All right, next is stamp alignment. So this is where you're going to use your grids. So you're going to take your grid. I personally like using this one since I know I'm using an A2 card. So I'm going to line it up and line up the A2 panel. So what I'm going to do with this is place my sentiment. So without this, I would not know if it's centered, if it's straight and all that. So this is where that would help. So you would put your stamp, and then you can see the little blue lines on top of your paper. So you can use those blue lines to help you to put it straight and where you want it. Once you have it, you pick it up with the lid of your stamp positioner, and then you're going to carefully remove that sheet, that acetate grid or guide, I should say, and then you're ready to go ahead and ink your stamp. So I'm inking it up again with my VersaFine black onyx ink, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp it directly down. And because I use that grid, those grid lines, I know it's going to be straight exactly where I want it. Yes. Our next technique is inking through stencil and using just a tad of glitter paste. I'm using the Postage Collage Wildflower Stencil set along with the Postage Collage die, which I love. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the diamond press mat. And then if you haven't used these stencils, they have a number. So this is Stencil 1. So first thing you need to do is just go ahead and line it up. The stencil has marks on it so you know where to put it down. You want to press down on all the sides because that's what's going to hold your stencil down onto your paper so it doesn't shift. Now, I'm just really playing. So I'm not really, thinking about all the colors and everything. I just want to throw some color on here because, I'm pretty much testing and, seeing how everything works. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use my blending brushes. I'm using the Distress Oxide inks again, and I'm going to go ahead and make some of the flowers pink and some of the flowers orange. No rhyme or reason. Well, actually, the little cone flowers, I definitely wanted yellow. But the funny thing is that when you're using the first step in the stencil set, you're kind of like, what is it supposed to be? So at first you're like, okay, hopefully that's right. Now you can go back and use an alcohol pad and clean that right off. Moving on to the second stencil. So again, you're going to layer it and match it up with what you did on the first stencil. And the grip mat is holding it like a champ. I'm using a little bit darker shades now. So I'm using Picked Raspberry to shade in the pink flowers. So I'm doing that to all those 3 pink ones. And then I'm going to go ahead and use Vintage Photo for the little cone flowers, like the little middle parts. And I could definitely use a smaller brush. I have them, but again, I wasn't trying to take everything out. I just wanted to see how this worked. So I'm going to go ahead and do the middles of these little yellow flowers in that brown too, since I have it out here. And then I'm taking almond orange just to give a little shading to the little cone flowers, as well as those little flowers at the top, which at this point I wasn't even sure what they were supposed to look like. And so that is spiced marmalade. Is that what it's called? Anyway, I went back with the Vintage Photo, just add a little bit more brown to the middle of those. So now carefully you're going to pull the stencil away, and it is not pulling up the paper, so that's good. So there's that. Okay, now on to the last stencil. So this is a set of 3 stencils, and this is more of the foliage. So go ahead and line it up with what you've already done. And now I'm going to use some greens. So I'm using Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn, my favorite greens. And I'm going to add just the light, which is the citron. I'm going to add that pretty much to all over, but I do want a little depth. So I am bringing in Mowed Lawn towards the bottom up to the top. So I'm just going ahead and adding color to the stencils. This is such a pretty one. This is the first time actually that I use this one. I've had it in, the story of my life. I don't use it. And then this little middle one has little leaves all around. So pretty. So now I'm going to switch over to Mowed Lawn. I use the same brush as long as it's the same color family. And so I'm just adding that darker shade towards the bottom, and I want to add it to the bottom of that little set of flowers. And then on the cone flowers, I thought they would look better just with a darker green in general. So I did that. Now I'm going to take some Gina K Glitz glitter gel. Oh my goodness. And as you can see, I have on some press and seal. I learned this trick from Amy R. a long time ago, and it helps to keep your glitter gels from basically, drying up. It doesn't work forever, but it definitely gives you a lot more mileage. So I definitely recommend this little tip. So I'm mixing it up really, really well. And then I'm going to be taking just a tiny little bit, because as you can see, this is a tiny little section here that needs the glitter paste. So I'm just taking out a little bit. So I'm just going to scrape it across, and it's better just to kind of do it so that your tool is a little bit flat, so you don't end up with a whole glob. And so I'm doing that on this one as well. And now this one ended up globby because I didn't listen to my own directions. So that's it. So this is why it's glitter light, because you just need a little tiny space. You don't need to go crazy with the glitter. All right, so always right away make sure that when you're using glitter paste like this, that you put the press and seal in with, try to get rid of as much air as possible too. That will help. And then put the lid right back on nice and tight. And then the next thing is I clean that tool. So just grab a baby wipe and just clean off as much as possible. So there's that. And so this is easy peasy cleaning. And now I can go ahead and remove my stencil. So again, I want to pull it carefully off the mat or away from the mat. And here's the final one. And look at how pretty. Oh my gosh, those cone flowers look really like dimensional. So, so pretty. So there it is. All right, so now I'm going to put this to the side, and so let that glitter dry up. Now, let's take it to the max. Now, for this one, I am putting it on my grip mat. I'm using this one that I used in the beginning because it's very, very detailed. And so I am pressing down. Now, I am using all glitter on this stencil. So again, I still use the press and seal. I'm going to mix it up really well. And then I'm going to lay it down. Now, what I want you to notice about the stencil is that the sides, this is a 6x6 stencil, by the way. The sides are really thin. You see that? Really, really thin. So there's a lot of grip mat all around. And what's one of our rules? Don't get glitter paste on the mat. So what you can do is, this is the acetate sheet that covers my mat when I'm not using it. So I can use this to mask off all the edges where that grip mat is at. So you can just put them all like this. And that will protect the grip mat so that you don't get any glitter paste on it. Okay, so just in case, you get a little bit, excited and go a little crazy with the glitter gel. So there it is. Now I have my A2, right? Because I'm matching it up with my paper. So I have my A2 ready to go. But this is not my preferred way to do it because then I have to clean off like all 4 sheets of this. So let me give you another tip of what I prefer to do instead. So I'm going to remove all these, set them to the side. Let me introduce you to my stencil mask. So this is a DIY grip mat mask. This is my stencil binder. This is how I keep my stencils. I organize them by themes. But in the very, very front, I have this sheet protector that has grip mat stencil masks. So these are masks that I have made for this purpose. And so there it is. So what I do is I've done 2 because those are the 2 sizes that I've used the most. So I have this one that is for A2, and then these little strips that are for 3.5 by 8.5 slimline, and these will just cover the 2 sides. So this one I labeled A2, and all I did was take an acetate sheet, cut it to the size of the grip mat, which is 6.5 by 8.5, and then cut out an A2 size 4.25 by 5.5 in the middle. So the middle is exposed so that you can put your glitter paste, but everything around it, edge to edge of the grip mat will have, will be protected. So you're just going to slap on your glitter paste. I like using this big stencil tool. And so then you can just squeegee it across just like that. And I need a little bit more because it's a little sparse there on the right. And then I'm going to go ahead and stencil it across. Once I have good coverage, I'm going to go ahead and scrape off any extra and put it back. Now, this is mandatory for me when you're using glitter paste or, any type of those types of paste. So I go ahead and put all my tools in the water. I close up my glitter paste back up nice and tight. I put my stencil mask, so I remove it off the grip mat. I put that in the soapy water. That's all it is. It's just soapy water, and then my stencil. And then I take it to the sink and wash them off. So this is just a little tub from Dollar Tree. Now, as you can see, there's no glitter paste on my mat. It's been protected by my little DIY mask. So I'm going to show you what I do. So this is another tip. I have the stencil cleaning kit. I know you can see how type A I am, right? So I have this little old rag. It's a washcloth, and then this little brush, also from Dollar Tree. And so all I do is, this is me, pretend I'm at the sink. And so I am just scrubbing gently, but I'm scrubbing away at that glitter paste because this happens to be glitter and red, right? Like the two combos. And so I go ahead and scrub all my tools, all the stencils, so I can get them clean again. So there's my little DIY mask, and then here's my little tool. And so then I'll take the cloth and wipe them down. So here's what the stencil looks like. So I have the washcloth, the little brush in there, and I keep this close by. Now look at my clean stencil, and then my clean mask, my clean squeegee thing, and then my little spatula, all clean and ready to go. Then I simply take my masks, put them back together, and then just put them back inside of this page protector, and it'll go back in front of my little binder. And this is a way that I've been able to make sure that my tools are safe and good to go. Okay, so storing the grip mats. As I mentioned already, you want to make sure that you have the acetate covers whenever you're not using them. So either if you're going to leave it in your MISTI, leave, the top one always on, even when you close the lid. All right, so caring for your grip mats. So I've kind of wrote out some tips here. So things you shouldn't do and things you definitely want to do. One thing you want to do is make sure that you don't have any foiled images on your mat, because what will happen is if one of these foiled images goes on your mat, it's going to stay on your mat. It's going to transfer onto your mat. Ask me how I know. So you definitely want to be careful around foiled images. Next, any glitters or embossing powders or any of that, you just want to stay away, keep it away from your mat. It will stick and it's so hard to get off, and it will basically remove that cling from your mat. You also want to avoid using any sharp knives, X-Acto knives, pokey tools. You don't want to damage it. You want to also avoid abrasive materials like your glitter paste. You don't want to use glitter paste and let it dry, because you are not going to be able to use your mat again wherever that paste is at. Also, do not use alcohol or chemical-based cleaners. So don't spray your mat with alcohol to clean it, because you can definitely ruin it. What you do want to do is use a regular stamp cleaner. Now this is StazOn. So if you're going to use StazOn, right, which is a solvent ink, then make sure you use the cleaner, the StazOn cleaner that goes with it. And after you've cleaned it off, you definitely want to go and put some ultra clean or whatever clean on top, just to get rid of any residual of that StazOn. So use regular stamp cleaners for photopolymer stamps like you normally would, right? Any of those made for photopolymer stamps, or a little soap and water, a damp lint-free cloth, like if you have a chamois, or a baby wipe, or my beloved Gina K tiny towel. Any of that would work. Finally, always remember, put the carrier sheet back on so that you can avoid getting it all dirty, linty, or dog hairy whenever you're not using it. I hope that these tips and tricks that I've shared with you have helped. My final thoughts is I thought that the Diamond Press grip mats worked pretty much just like the Waffle Flower ones. There are some little differences. I feel like that as I talked about it and explained in part 1, I feel like the diamond press one in general is a little bit more soft and malleable as opposed to a waffle flower, which is a little bit more sturdy. It doesn't seem to really impact the way they work. They both, do the same things. And I really didn't see a difference. So I feel like the diamond press one does what it does, like it's supposed to, and at a good value. So if you picked it up, good for you, because it sold out in like 10 minutes. So I'm sure they will bring it back. And I'm glad to have that really big size. That will be awesome. And having this extra mat that I can actually use red ink on since I've already stained it. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. I appreciate it. And if this was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And I will see you next time. Bye.